Hello, this is Lino Tadros again, and you made it till the final lab, number 6 in our series of videos to show how to use a real-life scenario with a customer service that uses Gen AI with the Azure stack from the Azure AI Foundry with Cosmos DB and AI search and all the wonderful stuff that Semantic Kernel brings to the table as well. So what are we going to do for this lab number 6? Well, we're going to use a major resource inside of Azure that makes life a lot easier for organizations that would like to productize their API. So we're going to use the Azure API management resource. It provides a range of policies and metrics and other features to enhance security, performance, and of course reliability for APIs serving your intelligent apps. Collectively, these features are called generative AI gateway capabilities. The question that you always have to ask yourself, can I actually implement all of these things on my own inside of my code, okay, for the API? And the answer, of course, you can do that. You can actually check the reliability, set up some performance code, do all the security, limit the TPM, which is the request per minute. You can write all that code, but do you really want to focus on that? Or having something like Azure API management that will put a gateway right in front of your API to manage that based on configuration, not code that you have to maintain forever and write whenever a new product comes out and so on and so forth. So whenever you want to productize your API for an organization, it is worth it to use API IM as a resource from Azure as well. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to set it up for our situation in here with the web API. All right, let's head over to our resource group where all the resources got created for us in lab number 1 using the bicep script. And I'm trying to find the one that has to do with APIM. Let's see where we can find that wonderful resource. Oh, it's the first one. There you go. That is the APIM resource. We'll click on that. And then I'm going to go to the left side under APIs and the first item here called APIs. Let's click on that as well. And we will see here in a second, there is a way to define a new API, create from definition. The one I'm interested in is to create from Azure resource. And you notice the first one is Azure OpenAI service. Let's click on this one. And now I just need to actually fill in all the information in here to be able to assign an API IM management service for my Azure OpenAI as well. So the first thing I'm going to go in here, there is my resource. It's found it inside of my resource group. I'm going to click on my resource that was created for me for OpenAI. I'm going to choose the default one for the 2024-201 is fine with me. And in the display name, let me go ahead and put something like Azure OpenAI API. And notice once you put a display name, and of course you can choose whatever you want. The name does not allow for spaces. It would put dashes in here. You can do the same thing for the description. It's not that important at this point. And then notice that the base URL has the HTTPS APIM with the name, with the app prefix against azure-api.net, and it has the sub as well after it immediately. It is important to click on the Improve SDK compatibility as well, and you don't need to do products because we don't have any right now, so we'll just leave it empty and we'll say next. Let's go ahead and do the next page. And now this has to do with the policies. And for the policies, I'm actually going to go ahead and check both of them. And both of them, once you check on them, they will include a lot of other settings that you need to be aware of as well. The first one is very important, the tokens per minute, TPM. And again, maybe we're using GPT-4o that has like 128,000 tokens and so on. And maybe if you take a look at your OpenAI resource, it will tell you what the TPM is per minute against the OpenAI itself. But I'm going to actually come in here and change this to 500. So it doesn't really matter what the GPT-4o is allowing. I'm going to limit that from the outside of my API directly to limit it by 500. I'm doing that so that I can try to see what is going to happen when I actually maybe click on the submit button multiple times right after each other. And I keep asking you to create like a joke or something. And within a minute, if I click on it multiple times, I'm probably going to exceed the 500 tokens. So I want to see what happens. There is a very famous error in the OpenAI world called the 429 error. And I would like to actually cause it to just prove the point that you can actually change the tokens per minute on the API layers in APIM that is outside of your API itself. So you can actually have this gateway to actually count the amount of tokens and being able to stop you from actually going against a specific amount of tokens per minute if you want to as well. The next part is I do actually want the limit by IP address, not by subscription. So we'll do that so that I'm doing this from home. That will work for me as well. And I'm going to add consume tokens headers and add remaining token headers as well to be able to do that. So that is the first part for managing token consumption. The second part is to track token usage. I want to actually be able to do that as well. So I'm going to turn this on to be able to track that and get in a dashboard the usage of all of that. Plus, of course, I will need to set the application insight instance. Remember, this is a resource that was created for me automatically in lab number 1 using the bicep script. I'm just going to use that in my resource group. And then there are 2 metrics that I would like to measure. The first one in here will be the I believe this one will be the app ID, and the second one will be the client IP address. Let's go ahead and click on these 2, and you will notice they will both be added here at the bottom as well. You can actually add more if you'd like to experiment with what the application insight will be able to show you as well. And now it's time to go ahead and review and create. We're good with that. It will show you all the stuff that it will actually cause as far as policies for our APIM. And I'm going to say go ahead and create. And then we will give it here a few seconds to assign the roles and create that. And I'll come back once it's done. And indeed, it took less than 10 seconds. And now notice on the left side, I have the Azure OpenAI API that I just created. If I would like to see actually the JSON representation of the policy, click on this edit in here. Alrighty. And let me see where I can find this. Oh, no, not this one. Let me go back here for a second. I think that would be, let's click on the Azure OpenAI. Discard this, and I want to click on this policies code. If I click on this guy, no, I'm going to do this later, I can actually see the JSON, or actually the XML that actually sets the inbound in here as well. So I know I want to make sure that it says 500 here for the TPM. I want to see that the estimated prompt token is true. I want to see that the consumed header named and all this information is correct, and the API ID and the client IP address has been added to the token metrics as well. So it looks like good. I'm going to discard. I didn't make any changes, and I'll leave it at that. Awesome. Go ahead and try this. Let's go ahead and click on the test. You see at the top in here it says test. Let's click on that, and I will get a chance to actually now enter the parameters and also the block of JSON that I would like to test this with. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it better. I want to go against the first one, creates a completion for the chat message. Let's click on that. And you'll notice the test in here is going against the APIM, which is great. That's our resource. And then it's asking me for the deployment ID. The deployment ID here will be GPT-40 or 40, okay? And the API version, I can actually use the latest one, the 2024-601 right there. And then I can continue with the other ones at the bottom here as well. I don't need to add headers. It is already the JSON in here. But for this one, let me go ahead and highlight all that. And I'm going to be putting something funny. I'm going to be putting in here a system prompt and a user prompt. The system prompt, that you're a sarcastic, unhelpful assistant. And the questions tell me a story about AI. So, of course, there is the third and final role, which will be the assistant. And that will be the answers coming in. Remember, when I invoke this, it's going to end up creating, let's say, maybe 200 or 300 different tokens to give you the joke. But if I click in multiple times during a minute, I will exceed the 500 that I said on the policy. So I should get the 429. And we will try that in a second. Are we ready to send? Yeah, let me make sure that there is the request URL right there. And there is the HTTP request with my own JSON packet. All right, let's go for it. I'm going to say send. And hopefully it will give me a bad joke. Already using sarcastic and unhelpful assistant. And it come back and the response is 200 okay. And all the information here using the content safety for hate and sexuality and self-harm and violence, all that stuff will be done. And then there is a sarcastic, unhelpful, oh, you want a story about AI, the thing, blah, 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 and it will go through that. My interest, though, will be all the way at the bottom where I have completion tokens. It's 328. Okay, and then I can see the prompt tokens was 28, the total tokens was 356, that's including the question and the response coming back. But remember, I said 500 in a minute is my max. So let's see what happens when I send this a couple of times. I'm going to send it again in here. And we'll click on it one more time. Oh, look at that. I send them two after each other. There is now an error 429 exception. Token limit is exceeded. Try again in 14 seconds, which your minute will start a new minute. That's why we have to be very careful with extensibility and with scalability. You do not want to have something like this and you have like 10, 20,000 people using your bot, for instance, and only the first couple of people will get an answer. Everybody else will end up getting 429. That's why having a gateway, having a load balance between multiple instances of OpenAI, and also replicate them in multiple regions, whether it's the United States, in Europe, or the Far East, or Australia, is going to be very important so people do not see this. It will actually go back and forth between different OpenAI instances and come back based on algorithms to find out, okay, we are in a new minute, we can go back to that region again, and we will continue going. All the stuff is something definitely APIM can do for you automatically without you having to write the code to make all the stuff happen as well. Excellent. Remember, I told it to use the application insight to be able to monitor all of this stuff. Great. Look at the left side of the APIM in here. We have monitoring and we have application insight. Let's click on application insight to take a look what's happening. And there is my instance for the application insight resource that I used. I can see definitely some information that have actually taken place in here for the server requests and the response times, and even failed requests, the one that caused the 429. All of them are right in front of me. And of course, if you're familiar with KQL, you are more than welcome to click on logs all the way at the top in here and enter your own. Let me close this down. I would like to enter my own query in here. And if you're familiar with KQL, it's an excellent language to be able to get, it's almost like SQL, but for a huge amount of data available from logs and log analytics and other things as well, like IoT devices coming in every few seconds. It's excellent for that. So I'm going to say the name of the table is custom metrics, and I'm going to actually start setting timestamp is within the last hour, and I'm going to bringing in the completion token and all that stuff. And I'm going to extend the item ID, API ID, and the client IP address. And I'm going to do summarization as well, using some aggregates for the sum and for the completion tokens, the prompt tokens, and all that. So let me go ahead and run this and see if I can get some information in the last hour. And indeed, just because I just ran this, I got two of them available in here. In the total tokens, one was 356, one was 166. And in the application, I can open it up and I can see the prompt tokens. That's for the request, the answer, and how much total between the two is available right for me in here. And I can tell which client IP address and the API ID and everything else that was able to do this for me as well. It's awesome. Great. Another things that KQL can do for you as well. Let me remove this. I can actually use charting as well. I can say use the custom metrics. I will do pretty much the same thing, but at the end I'm going to render a bar chart with the count equals stacked. Let me go ahead and run this and see really quickly if it's going to do that. And I can see the completion tokens versus the prompt tokens versus the total tokens, and I can actually see all the stuff using KQL as well. So you can see how powerful this is. This is a quick way just to set up APIM to let you know how to work with it and how to set it up and how to send all the monitoring into application insight as well to monitor your tokens. Maybe you can put an alert using a Logic app to be able to send you an email or something on Microsoft Teams or Slack letting you know, hey, you have actually failed in the last hour several times. So you might want to actually increase your TPM or something like that. You can definitely do all of that with alerts if you want to as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Now we have only one video left, and after that this entire series will be done. I hope you're enjoying it, learning a lot about a real life scenario with Gen AI in the enterprise, and I'll see you again in the last video. Thank you.